The Tang Dynasty is one of the greatest empires in all of human history and is considered China's golden age, the pinnacle of Chinese civilization. Among many things it was a golden age of, the Tang was considered a golden age of Chinese poetry, with over 48,000 poems by 2,200 Tang Dynasty poets surviving to this day. There are poems by famous 诗人 such as Du Fu, Wang Wei, and Bai Juyi. But there is no more famous a poet than the legendary Li Bai, who wondered the empire, saved a Tang Dynasty general, dazzled the imperial court with his poetry, and narrowly escaped death on one occasion. He is known as the greatest poet in Chinese history, and this is his story. Li Bai is thought to have been born in the year 701 AD in what is present-day Kyrgyzstan. His family did business on the frontier there and later moved back into China and settled in Sichuan province. When he was young, he studied the Confucian classics, but he never actually took the civil service examination. Li also learned swordsmanship, which would mean the Chinese straight sword or jian. He later told another poet, when he was young, he was chivalrous, helping the weak and killing many men. Although all the accounts of this come from Li Bai himself, so maybe he was good with a sword, but parts of these stories are probably exaggerated, especially because he was drunk most of the time. As recorded in the Old Book of Tang or Jiu Tang Shu, he was addicted to alcohol. He spent his days with drinking buddies drunk at the bar. Sounds like he'd fit right into 21st century America, to be honest.
That's my little drinker. Homer, what gives? It's only Tuesday and you're drinking like it's a Thursday.
But I'm guessing his drinking was a lot more elegant than that. It would have been Chinese wine rather than beer, and it opened up his creative abilities to write great poetry. And we're going to get to all that in just a moment. But first, after Li Bai left Sichuan province, he began wandering around the country and eventually ended up in what is modern-day Shandong province. During this period of wandering around, though, he married his first wife, who was the daughter of a retired government official from a very well-connected family in Hubei. It seems his connections in government served him well, because in the year 735 he was in Shanxi province and he intervened in the court-martial against Guo Ziyi, a Tang Dynasty military general. Now remember this fact because it becomes important later on. Around the year 740 or so, Li Bai makes friends with a Taoist priest who eventually has an audience with Emperor Xuanzong in Chang'an, the capital, and praises Li Bai to the emperor so much that the emperor summons Li Bai to Chang'an. Now Li Bai shows up drunk, of course, but immediately composes a beautiful poem praising the beauty of the emperor's consort Yang Guifei, the same Yang Guifei who would be ordered to commit suicide because the emperor was too infatuated with her and he was neglecting his duties to the country. But that's a different story. Anyway, the poem went like this. 云想衣裳花想容，春风拂槛露华浓。若非群玉山头见，会向瑶台月下逢。 Emperor Xuanzong was so impressed that he appointed Li Bai to the Hanlin Academy, which provided scholarly tasks to the court, such as translation, interpretation of the classics, and the creation of poetry for the emperor. Li Bai continued to compose great poetry, and there were themes that continually come up in his poems, like the moon. One of the most famous poems in all of Chinese poetry that is taught normally as the first poem in any course on Chinese literature is Li Bai's 静夜思, or Thinking on a Quiet Night. 床前明月光，疑是地上霜。举头望明月，低头思故乡。 I know it so well, I just recited it from memory. And then, of course, another topic that comes up is, well, wine. One of my personal favorite poems from Li Bai combines both wine and the moon. It's called 月下独酌, or Drinking Alone Under the Moon. 花间一壶酒，独酌无相亲。举杯邀明月，对影成三人。月既不解饮。 影徒随我身，暂伴月将影，行乐须及春. That was about half of it. You get the idea. But anyway, Li Bai spent some time at the palace and all was well and good until he got on the wrong side of a conniving eunuch named Gao Li Shi. There's always an evil eunuch in these stories. But anyway, this eunuch managed to convince Lady Yang Guifei that Li Bai meant offense in one of the poems he wrote about her, and she told the emperor to get rid of him, which reluctantly he did, but he sent him off with a load of gifts of gold and silver. Li Bai then wandered the empire for another 10 years or so, writing more poetry. He met his contemporary Du Fu, and the two exchanged a load of poems back and forth, many of which still survive to this day. But things were about to take a turn. In the year 755, the An Lushan rebellion broke out, and An Lushan, who was a military governor of 3 prefectures and had originally curried favor with Emperor Xuanzong, took over the city of Luoyang and declared himself the emperor of a new dynasty, while his troops tried to take over the remainder of the country. This forced Emperor Xuanzong to flee Chang'an, but out on the road, his soldiers blamed Lady Yang for taking his mind off of handling the affairs of the empire and forced him to have her commit suicide. But how does this all relate to Li Bai? Well, when Emperor Xuanzong left Chang'an and Lady Yang died, his son declared himself the new emperor, Emperor Suzong. At this time, Li Bai had already found a job working for another prince in the imperial household, a brother of the new emperor. Well, in the chaos, this prince actually used his army to make a go for the throne himself and was then defeated by his brother, Emperor Suzong, who then ordered everyone working under the challenger sentenced to death, including Li Bai. But remember at the beginning of the story, we told you about General Guo Ziyi, whose court-martial Li Bai intervened in? Well, he showed up just in the nick of time to return the favor to Li Bai. He was now a powerful general in the Tang Dynasty army, and he asked for Li Bai to be spared death. Instead, he was exiled to what is now Guizhou, which was a far-off corner of the Tang Empire. But in true Li Bai fashion, he didn't hurry there. Instead, he spent months traveling in the general direction of Guizhou, stopping to visit friends, drink wine, and write poetry. Before even reaching the destination, he was actually pardoned, and the news caught up with him on the road, so he simply turned back around. In the 760s, there was yet another new emperor, Emperor Daizong, and this new emperor wanted to appoint Li Bai as a court counselor. However, it seems as this appointment was sent out, Li Bai had already passed away. It's not really known how he died, but there are a few theories. Do you want to hear the cool theory, or what probably actually happened? Of course you want to hear the cool one. Legend has it that Li Bai was drunk on a boat at night, and he leaned over the side and he saw the reflection of the moon in the still glass-like water. In his drunken stupor, he did what you or I might do at a 3D movie. He reached out for something that wasn't there. His hand breached the surface of the water, and his body followed, falling into the lake and drowning. I think it's a very fitting death. You have all the elements of a Li Bai story: drunkenness, the moon, a quiet night. It probably didn't happen, but his ambiguous death only adds to the legend of the greatest poet in Chinese history. Guys, what do you think of this story? Please leave your comments below and let us know what other cool historical stories you would like us to cover on this channel in the future. Subscribe to our channel if you're new for more videos like this. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.